Ignition sequence starts.
Good morning, and welcome to this view of activity in the International Space Station Flight Control Room at NASA's Johnson Space Center. These are the folks keeping tabs on the operation of space station systems and working with the Expedition 65 crew members on station maintenance, science experiments, and other dynamic operations. This week, some of the crew members moved their spacecraft to a new docking port. They're all looking ahead to next week when they'll get a new commander and then welcome 3 new crewmates aboard.
Houston Station on Space to Ground.
Welcome to Space to Ground. I'm Sandra Jones. It was a busy traffic week on board Space Station with the Soyuz relocation and the undocking and return to Earth of a cargo resupply ship packed with science.
Command has been sent.
On Tuesday, September 28th, NASA astronaut Mark Vande Hei and Russian cosmonauts Oleg Novitsky and Pyotr Dubrov took a short trip inside the Soyuz MS-18 spacecraft, relocating it from the Razviet module to the Nauka multi-purpose laboratory module. This relocation opens a slot for the Soyuz MS-19 to dock following its launch October 5th from the Baikonur Cosmodrome in Kazakhstan. Then 2 days later, on Thursday, SpaceX's 23rd Cargo Dragon resupply vehicle undocked from the International Space Station and splashed down off the coast of Florida. The unpiloted spacecraft was loaded with scientific experiment samples. Some of the highlights of the science returning to planet Earth on Dragon include investigations on muscle atrophy, drug metabolization, and possible breakthroughs for diseases such as Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, and type 2 diabetes. The Japan Aerospace Exploration Agency investigation anti-atrophy tests the ability of biomaterials to inhibit muscle atrophy in microgravity. Researchers plan to compare 2 types of cultures returning to Earth, and results may lead to the production of pharmaceuticals to prevent muscle atrophy for astronauts in space and the elderly on Earth. Genes in Space 8 tests a technology for monitoring the expression of genes that control critical enzymes that may be responsible for pharmaceuticals not working as well in space. The returning samples will be further analyzed on Earth. Also returning in Dragon are samples from the ring shear drop experiment, which utilized a specially developed device that uses surface tension rather than a solid to hold liquids. Researchers use this device to create protein aggregations which may be related to Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, and type 2 diabetes. Results will be further analyzed by teams on the ground following the experiment's success in space. That's Space to Ground for this week. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you next week.
The major goals of the International Space Station program are to support the commercial use of space, advance scientific research, promote international cooperation, and help lay the groundwork for future exploration out beyond Earth orbit. Those future missions will be part of the Artemis program, which is working toward the first flight of the Orion spacecraft on the Space Launch System rocket supported by the ground systems at NASA's Kennedy Space Center in Florida. Here's an update on the progress that's been made in getting that hardware ready for that next flight. The goal of Project Artemis is to learn how to live long-term on the moon and get us ready to one day go on to Mars. The scientists are excited about being able to use the water that already exists on the moon to support a sustainable program of exploration. The presence of water on the moon is a relatively recent discovery and one that opens up exciting possibilities for the future.
Exploring the presence of water on the moon. I'm Jim Green, NASA's chief scientist, and this is Science at NASA.
We are going to the moon.
As NASA prepares to return to the moon, one of the many exciting opportunities scientists are preparing for is the ability to use the water that exists there to support human exploration. The presence of water has been a relatively recent discovery, opening up many exciting possibilities for future exploration and just as many questions about the water's origins. In the late 1990s, NASA's Lunar Prospector mission found extra hydrogen at the poles. And where there's hydrogen, there might be water. Enter the L-CROSS mission, designed to determine the type and amount of hydrogen that might be present just below the moon's polar regions. Tony Colipri is a planetary scientist at NASA's Ames Research Center and was the principal investigator for the L-CROSS mission.
To determine the form of hydrogen at the poles, we needed a way to access material below the moon's surface. So we carried a piece of the Atlas rocket we launched on all the way to the moon and directed it into one of the large, permanently shadowed craters near the South Pole, which caused a plume of dust and debris to shoot upwards. We had a probe with 9 different measuring instruments following the plume's 10-mile or 16-kilometer upward trajectory. The Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter spacecraft was also making observations of the plume while mapping the lunar surface from its orbit around the moon. The lunar dirt in the plume hadn't seen the sun in over 2 billion years. In the sunlight, among other metals and gases, we found water, about 5% by weight.
Now we know there's water on the moon.
Research scientist Jen Hellman is also at Ames. She explains why the discovery is much more than just a scientific curiosity.
Ultimately, I believe we'll be living on the moon for extended periods of time, so we need to take advantage of whatever resources we can find there. Water is H2O, a combination of hydrogen and oxygen, and we can break it apart. So now we have a source of hydrogen and oxygen that may be able to be used for rocket fuel, as well as a source of oxygen for breathing. Water on the moon gives you a new paradigm for future space exploration. Very exciting.
In the 10 years since the L-CROSS mission, we have continued to study water at the lunar poles from orbit with instruments on several missions. But we still have lots of questions. Where, for instance, did the water come from? Some believe that the water in other volatiles could be remnants of comets and asteroid impacts over billions of years. Others point to recent meteoric showers that can be seen producing water vapor. And where exactly is the water? We've confirmed that water exists in the Cabeus crater near the moon's south pole, where the L-CROSS impact occurred. But how plentiful is it? And can we expect to find it in other super cold regions?
We won't be able to answer any of these questions with certainty until we visit the South Pole with robots and astronauts.
Through the Artemis program, NASA is planning to do just that. Thirsting for more information about the changing science of the moon? Visit science.nasa.gov.
On the subject of how research in space helps people on the planet, research on the International Space Station has already had an impact on plans for how we will supply future explorers on the moon with clean water. But in figuring out how to do that, we've also developed an inexpensive, easy-to-use tool that allows people here on the planet to check the purity of their own water.
Most of the children, they come here with waterborne disease.
So many children under 5 suffer from diarrheas.
They're complaining about the abdominal pain, skin rashes.
They get waterborne illness through drinking water.
Most of the community members had little knowledge regarding the use of safe water and what safe water is.
Because most of the water we use it without knowing it is affected with disease or not.
So we need to test them so that we make sure that the water is safe or not safe.
A lot of people have the idea that water quality is too hard to do in the field and it's too complicated.
Having to transport samples, having to have reliable electricity, having to heat samples or keep samples at certain temperatures or put them in refrigerators.
But probably the biggest challenge is actually the cost.
The price was really high, up to $300 a test.
So all those things come together to make it really difficult to use a traditional laboratory approach when you're testing water. What's been missing is the really simple, cheap test kit, and that solution came from above. On the space station, we recycle almost all the water that the astronauts drink, and that constitutes a risk because if that water became contaminated, the astronauts would have to abandon the space station in the worst case scenario. What we needed on the space station was something that was small, easy to transport, and didn't require a lot of training for the astronauts. We developed a water test kit that was really easy to use and used off-the-shelf components, and we called that the Microbial Water Analysis Kit, or MWAC. It's basically a bag that changes color in it, and the astronauts just had to hook it up to the water system, take the sample, store it overnight, and read it the next day. It worked great, and it's still in use today. This was when we realized we had a chance to make a difference in the world using the same technology that was used by NASA, but applied in a remote area of a developing country.
We started MWater for the biggest health crisis on the planet, which is a lack of safe water. The test kit is revolutionary because of its cost. It lowers the cost of testing water points from hundreds of dollars to about $5 to $7. It can be done on site in the remote region, and it can give you a result within 24 hours.
I take a sample today, tomorrow I have results. To use a MWater kit is very easier.
But we learned that testing water by itself wasn't enough. With the mobile app, people could map water sources and record the data.
So that way we're building sort of a global database of water information that everybody can contribute to and share with others.
So what that meant was people who before didn't have a feasible and affordable way to test water suddenly had the means to know which water sources around them were safe.
It's made people much more aware of the issues of water quality. That's a very powerful thing.
And that's all due to technology that we've borrowed from the International Space Station. So now we're able to assemble a really low-cost water quality test kit to ship all over the world.
We've been working with the local health ministry and the water utility in Mwanza, Tanzania since 2013.
Through that technology, most of the citizens in Mwanza have an increased awareness regarding the kind of water they use and whether it causes them any waterborne illnesses or not.
People are now treating their water and avoiding sources of water which could be contaminated. I've seen a growing awareness.
It is very unusual for technology that is used in international space stations to be used in developing countries like Tanzania, but it can be used, and it should be used because this technology is not limited to only developed countries, but for all humankind.
Along with doing hands-on science in the International Space Station's laboratories, the crew members have been talking directly with students on the ground to share the experience, and some of them have been making fun instructional videos in zero-G. In this installment of the STEMonstration series, Scott Tingle demonstrates the orbit of spacecraft and offers the viewers a chance to participate.
My name is Scott Tingle, and I'm living and working on board the International Space Station. You know, I love my views from the cupola. It's our orbiting altitude of around 400 kilometers or 250 miles above the Earth's surface that gives us these unique perspectives. Let's explore how our ISS orbits work. Come on. First, I should explain, orbits are elliptical or oval in shape, with some being almost circular. Planets, comets, and moons have elliptical orbits. Spacecraft, orbiting Earth like the space station, are placed into a nearly circular orbit to keep a consistent altitude as they travel around the planet. Let's take a look at the Earth. It has a radius of 6,378 kilometers, and the station orbits about 400 kilometers above the surface at 8 kilometers per second. That's 17,500 miles per hour. See if you can use these values to calculate how far and how long we travel in one orbit around the Earth. All of this information and more activities related to orbits are available in the accompanying lesson plan at nasa.gov/STEM on station.
Answers coming in.
4, 3, 2, 1.
The answers to the questions, by the way, are approximately 42,600 kilometers and 90 minutes. And due to our altitude on orbit, we have our very unique and awesome view of the Earth. Thanks for exploring with me today. I'm going to send you back to Earth now so you can start your challenge on orbits. See you again soon.
Four of the Expedition 65 astronauts, representing 3 different countries, flew on Crew 2 to the one and only International Space Station. Before their launch, we got each of them to stand still for some rapid-fire questioning. And here's the straight skinny on their favorite foods, colors, and decades, their pet peeves and guilty pleasures, and who inspires them.
Tacos. Cheese and dairy. I know it's cliche for a Frenchman, but it's true.
Ramen noodles.
Cookies.
Favorite color is blue.
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 Orange.
Haagen-Dazs strawberry.
Pistachio.
Mint chip.
Plain vanilla, low quality fast food ice cream.
The Princess Bride.
Favorite movie is Proxima. It's named after my first mission. It's the story of a female astronaut, European, French woman going to space. Anything with Bourne or Bond?
It's hard to say. A couple of Japanese mystery books.
Extreme ownership.
I love books, so I can't choose just one.
I don't have any. I read a lot of books, and I think if I had a favorite one, I would stop reading. But like every new one is my favorite book, and that's what I keep reading.
I like skiing.
Basketball.
Rugby.
Golf.
I don't dance.
I've been here long enough. Not falling for it.
A moonwalk. Easy, but not really. That's the single ladies choreography.
The 90s were pretty great.
That's when I fell in love, got married.
That's when I was in college and the music was really great.
Kids were born in the 90s. I had some great jobs of flying Apache helicopters and jumping out of airplanes. Every decade is the one we're in. I think things get better.
Mean drivers.
Inefficiency.
I don't have anything. Nothing bothers me.
I do have a superpower, and it's to make kids happy. Sometimes, they want a selfie or an autograph, and you make them happy, and I think that's a really cool superpower to have. To fly.
I would have to say fly.
Flying, obviously.
Rom-coms. I never watch movies, but sometimes when I do, I end up with, feel-good, happy ending love stories. Ice cream.
Well, chocolate, but I don't actually feel all that guilty about it.
Parent.
Being a parent.
Parent, for sure.
It's not even close.
My wife.
Friends and families.
My husband.
I'd say my partner in life. She's the funniest person in the world.
My dad.
Amanda Gorman.
I think my parents are really normal people who takes responsibilities at the local level and try to do the good things.
Coffee.
Tea.
Coffee, definitely. Tea?
build a sandcastle?
I think I'd hop on a rover and go cruising around all day.
Look for footprints.
Probably do backflips. I was on a parabolic flight with Mars gravity and Moon gravity. I can do a double backflip in Moon gravity, but I'm not quite sure on Mars, but I would try it.
I think it's Russian language, and one of my former crewmates told me, for Russian language, the first 10 years are the hardest, so I think that's pretty accurate.
I think the volume and the variety is what makes it hard, but that's also what makes it great.
Sugar.
I do. I do have a call sign, but I cannot tell you what it is and why.
Leave it there.
International Space Station crew members who spend many, many months in space, like the Expedition 65 crew members have, get the opportunity to see changes on the Earth below them over time. One of their European Space Agency colleagues, who has a full year in space to his credit, says he noticed the human influence on the planet we all call home.
Okay, 3, 2, 1. Well, I've been lucky enough to spend exactly 1 leap year on the space station, 366 days. So you can imagine that in 366 days, you get to see the Earth quite a bit. Even though we are so busy on the space station, we do try to look outside and glimpse what's flying below us any chance we get. Was a part of me, the dreamer, the little kid that started dreaming about this whole experience now basically 40 years ago. That part of me was still there, unchanged for 30 or 40 years, and just marveling incredulously at the beauty of it all. And I would see clouds and green and rivers, and it would just completely fill my eyes. The difference in observing the world or the universe from inside the space station, looking through the windows, or being outside, is what I describe as the same level of interaction that you can have looking at a beautiful aquarium from the safety of a room. When you're outside and all you have is a helmet and maybe 1.5 inch of plexiglass in front of your eyes, you can see details and colors and shades, the level of detail that you can capture and the way you experience that universe is going to be very, very different. You want and you feel that you have become part of it, and you can develop that sense of belonging. I think that the first impact of the first flight was that I did see and I did sense how fragile, how small the Earth is. We are used to think of the Earth as something so vast and big, and we don't think that what we do, our daily life, can affect such a vast system. But from space, you get a sense that every individual, every living organism is somehow connected. Seeing the city lights at night, where a place like Europe or the United States or Asia, densely populated, everything is so interconnected, and all those lights and all those lives are apparent. They are right in front of you all together, and you think that all we are doing somehow has an effect on everybody else. You come back from an experience like that thinking that that's what's happening, and then you can see the effects, both the positive ones but mostly the negative ones, in a second flight. And I think you have to acknowledge and grow an awareness, and with that awareness comes the desire to to share experience and share that awareness. It's understanding that the science that's telling us how we are changing and influencing the world has solid mathematical and solid mathematical base. And then you see the effects of it and you just interiorize it. You make it your own experience. And I think that that's what happened. That's why astronauts develop that awareness of and the desire to help the environment somehow, in any way they can.
If you'd like to get another look at any of these stories, you can find them on YouTube and Facebook. They're there with lots of other great features on a whole variety of NASA topics. And if you're looking for good conversation about human spaceflight, check out Houston, We Have a Podcast. It's our weekly show with interviews about all aspects of human spaceflight and NASA's missions of exploration. Today, Gary Jordan talks to the program scientist about a NASA planetary defense test mission to learn about how to redirect asteroids away from Earth. No kidding. Go to nasa.gov/podcasts for this week's episode and all the previous episodes. In fact, the full library of all the NASA podcasts are right there. They are all also on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and SoundCloud.